All right, hi, everybody on Zoom. Can I get a thumbs up from somebody if you can hear me?
Yeah.
Screen, see if my mic is working.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, if you're on Zoom and you can hear me, Tom is stuck in traffic, so he'll be here in about 15 minutes. So we're gonna go ahead and start at 6:30 is the time we will start. Hi, everybody on Zoom. Again, we are starting at 6:30. The president is late, stuck in traffic. Apologize for the delay. Please tune back in at 6:30.
Thanks. All right, folks, 6:30. First plan of attack here is we do have our list of questions. I'm gonna have Mark go through, read those. We have a compiled list of answers here, so we're gonna get those out to you. And then we'll open it up for some discussion.
All right, hi, everybody. So we got about 6 people in the room, 7 people, and it looks like 9 people online. So the guidelines for tonight's town hall meeting will, in order to ensure that everyone in the room gets a chance to speak. First time around, you'll be granted 3 minutes to speak, and then we'll move to the next person, and the next person, and the next person, so everybody gets a chance. And then if we have time at the end, we'll circle back and see if anybody has anything else they'd like to add to the conversation. So we're allotting an hour for this. We really try to keep it to that. I know that you guys all are busy. So what this is tonight is a chance to answer the questions that were fed to the board. We went through painstakingly and reviewed everything we could to get those questions answered. And it's a chance to answer some questions. What tonight is not is a decision-making body. As you see, we don't have a quorum. And even if we did, we wouldn't be, that's not the purpose of this meeting. So we're not going to make decisions to reverse board decisions. So with that being said, I will start with reading all the questions that were fed to us. I will read the answers that the board has come up with, and I'll move through the general topics of conversation. Note, I will read the questions unaltered with the grammar as is and the typos and as such, because we didn't want to change or misinterpret any of the questions. So I think the largest question right up front that we're going to address is irrigation and landscaping issues. But before I do that, I do want to read some items that will frame everything for the rest of the night. And this comes from the charter. So the first thing I want to read is here. So the first thing we want to read is Exhibit B, Section 2B, under the PD Community Charter.
Under what chart?
Your charter, Paired Villas Charter.
So interestingly enough, I just want to tell you.
So again, I just want to go through all the questions, and then at the end we'll do some comments.
Wasn't a comment, it's actually a question about that document that you're going to reference.
Sure.
It's not in at Folio.
I promise you it is, and I will show you.
I downloaded everything that was in there and I didn't have that, so thank you. We'll go ahead, I'm just saying, that's part of the problem. I can't get access to everything.
I can show you where,
Okay.
I'll show you how
Okay.
And
show you ways we're gonna be making that even easier.
so Section 2 of Exhibit B, 2B, is the section that references the HOA's responsibility for landscaping and maintenance programs. And it says, pursuant to Section 10.2A of the Charter, the association shall be responsible for performing or causing to be performed on behalf of the owners of all units within your service area the following landscape maintenance on such schedule as the board deems appropriate to maintain lawns and shrubbery on the units in a healthy and attractive condition, consistent with community-wide standards. So mowing and edging of an application of fertilizers and chemicals to control weeds and insects, lawns on such units to the extent that the owners would otherwise be responsible for. Fertilizing and pruning of trees and shrubbery, mulching of trees, shrub beds, and treating shrubbery for diseases. Except that the association shall have no responsibility for lawns, shrubbery, or other landscaping located within any patio, courtyard, or fenced area of the unit, nor for maintenance of any landscaping installed by the owner or occupant of the unit. In addition to the above, the association shall be responsible for the operation, maintenance, repair, and replacement as necessary of any irrigation equipment, including without limitation any sprinklers, pumps, wells, water lines, and time clocks wherever located, serving the units in service area numbers 2 and 3, except that the association shall have no responsibility for any sprinklers or other irrigation equipment installed by the owner. The other section I would like to read to you is Exhibit B, Section 4A and B. So 4A and B talks about a maintenance easement, and it says the association shall have a perpetual, non-exclusive easement over the units for the purpose of performing its maintenance responsibilities hereunder and under the charter, which easements may be exercised by the association, its officers, directors, employees, agents, and contractors and entry upon any unit for such purpose shall not be deemed a trespass. I wanted to read those two statements aloud to everyone in the room because that sets the phase or sets the tone for the discussion about irrigation. What Exhibit B 2B does is tell the HOA what it must do. And Section 4A and B gives the HOA the power to do this. So what that means, interpreting roughly, is that if your timer is in your garage, the HOA, through this easement, which was signed when you bought your house, has the rights to go into your personal garage and adjust your timer. Has the right to allow a landscaper or other agent to go into your garage and adjust your timer in order to fix the water amount. So I think that's a really important detail. So going forward, so now with that frame of reference set, let's go through the questions. So the question number one is, when will the residents be given details regarding the smart irrigation system? Residents do not wish to have structural changes to their homes or give permission to have these systems installed. What does the charter allow? What in the charter allows the board to have them installed? Who will pay the water bills for county watering violations? Who has control over the irrigation system? Now you can see why those two paragraphs that I just read are important. So this is, I don't know what the questionnaire, the petitioner is asking as far as details, but here are some vague details, if you will. And we look to get some more information out to you, but so smart irrigation system details. So the new system will allow for remote management and monitoring for leaks and proper watering. Alerts will be set for all issues so that maintenance can be performed before plants die and need to be replaced. In addition, the smart system can report the water usage. That data can be used by the owner to remove the sewage charge that you now pay for on your irrigation system. Additionally, in the future, there has been board discussions about adding deep wells in the future to reduce the cost of your watering for your lawns entirely. To answer another part of this question, the water cost will continue to be the responsibility of the homeowner. And just lastly, to reiterate the two sections, if you want to write them down and go read them, it's Exhibit B, Section 2B, and Exhibit B, Section 4A and B. The next question to come from a resident regarding irrigation systems was, can the PV be given control of their landscaping? The very short answer is no. The landscaping, per the PV charter, is the responsibility of the HOA. It is a contract between the homeowners and the HOA. If the HOA does not do it, we are in violation of that contract. The long answer is, if you want to be in charge of your landscaping, you have to change your charter. Next question. How are we monitoring the landscaping company to ensure the quality of the work? How do we report issues, and how does the board address repeat issues? Pests, the side being replaced over and over again. So the HOA uses AppFolio to address maintenance issues. I highly encourage any resident that has a maintenance issue to go into AppFolio and input their request for maintenance. Every Wednesday, all requests and open issues are reviewed, all requests and open issues are reviewed by the management with our landscaping company. And when it's necessary, they do an on-site walkthrough. This is Patty and the landscaping manager. Mostly all sod failures can be tied to improper watering, either not enough watering or too much watering. Proper watering will require sod to be replaced less and will ultimately result in a long-term savings. And communities that have transitioned to these automated timers have seen these savings. You're all gonna have to listen to me talk for like half an hour. There's a lot of questions.
So this doesn't count as our part of the time, right?
You will get your time, yes, ma'am.
We want to talk to you all, but we want to make sure we address
Yeah,
the
these
questions.
are specific questions that were given to us to answer. Okay. Let's see, landscaping repairs. If the company damages the irrigation, should, it's not really a question, but we address it. So landscaping repairs. If the company damages the irrigation, they should pay to repair it. That was a statement from somebody. Yes, and we hold the landscaping company responsible for any damages that they do. And if you have damages that the landscaping company did, please report it to us. We have refused dozens of invoices exceeding over $5,000 in fees that the landscaping company said, this is broken and we want to fix it. And we said, no, you broke it, you fix it. So the Sunrise landscaping manager is now actively checking all repair invoices before they are submitted to HOA management. So there's another stopgap. All right. How is the landscaping and pest budget calculated? By square foot for the area? Is there an estimate for the company by service area? How is the board confirming that the landscaping company is using the amount charged in the PV service area, i.e. mulch? There's a bunch of questions wrapped into one statement there. So the contracts for each service area were calculated by the vendor and were presented to us with a breakdown during the competitive bidding process when we were searching for a landscaper. Time to maintain this area and square footage were both used to calculate those costs. Currently, the board of directors, having heard the community's outcry about the poor service, is actively and continually shopping for better prices while also trying to maintain a high quality service. This year's budget, you'll see if you compare this year's budget to previous budgets, it actually breaks out line by line each service area's landscaping expenses. Previous management companies lumped all landscaping fees for all of Fish Hawk Range West into one line item. So now we can more effectively hold them accountable and see what money is going for your area. So that concludes all of the questions for irrigation and landscaping. We'll move on to some finance questions that were asked by the community. I'm just curious, show of hands, did anybody in the room hear a question they had asked?
Not exactly the way I.
Okay, so two in the room.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my email said the meeting started at 7, so I apologize for coming in.
No problem. So we started at 6:30, so you didn't miss me.
I only have one specific question, is it?
So basically, yes, sir, absolutely. Because you may hear the answer for your question from the many questions that were asked. So we're going to talk about finances now, and specifically breakdown of reserves. Here's the question. When they are projected to be in the black, question, probably when are they? Why were the payments, why were the payments to increase the reserves not spread out over a longer period of time? So this is a question that a lot of people ask. And before I joined the HOA, I had no idea how reserves worked. I too thought they were like a savings account. We're all gonna put a bunch of money into a savings account, and then something breaks, we can pull some money out of the savings account, pay for it, and then there's a ceiling, there's a certain amount that it has to be. But this is a misconception about how reserves work. They are not a savings account. Reserves are replacement accounts. Reserves are used for the purpose of maintaining assets and are tracked by each individual component and asset. So in the reserves, each publicly owned asset has a line. And there's a time of that's set out during the reserve study that item needs to be replaced. So there's no max amount that goes in the reserve. It's always building up, and then we pay for some things and it comes down according to the cycle. So for example, between now and 2026, the paired villas are scheduled, according to the reserve study, to put out $350,000 to repaint the paired villas. And right now, for both, and that's just for painting, that doesn't include the roof. Right now, in that account, in the reserve, is only $280K. So we have to make up that difference. But so the thing is that once we spend that money, it comes out of the account, and then it keeps growing until we get the next expense. The reserves are based on the 30-year cycle. So it looks out 30 years to see what's going to need to be replaced.
Excuse me, when did you say that everything was scheduled?
Very quickly, between now and 2026.
That's not.
So the next question. So bottom line, reserves will never be in the black, and they are continually assessed when an asset fails or its useful life has ended, according to the reserve study, which you can access the reserve study in the shared files. Let's see. Okay, the next question. Is there a cap on annual increases? The short answer is no. The budget increases as expenses increase in order to maintain the amenities of the HOA. This maintenance is not optional, as the amenities were purchased by each homeowner as part of their homes. Why is Fishhawk Ranch not professionally managed, and why was Rosetta fired? We get this one alone. So Fishhawk Ranch West is and always will be professionally managed. State law requires that we have a licensed certified association manager, an LCAM, which is what Patty is, with decades of experience. We also have professional bookkeepers, we have auditing, and we have legal representation, all professionals, not board members. As far as the question regarding Rosetta, the current board did not sever the contract with Rosetta. That happened over 3 years ago. So I don't know how to answer that question. What I can tell you about our decision to sever our ties with Associate is that we decided to not renew our contract with Associate. And the decision was based on what we were getting for what we were paying. Where can a copy of the last audit report be found? By law, the report should outline what the reserve for each service area is and what the shortfall at the end of the fiscal year is, if any. Bottom line, audits are placed online in the document. If you have a problem finding it, let us know. We'll get it to you. Email management@fishhawkranchwest.org if you still have a problem, and we'll make sure that you can get that audit for anyone that wants it.
So who is the project management company now? It's not associated.
Fishhawk Ranch West HOA,
Pardon?
Fishhawk Ranch West HOA, just us.
Y'all,
Yes.
you're the management team.
Again, that's not correct, right? Management consists of 3 people. It always has in this community. Actually, it dropped down to just 1 part-time person for a very long time, and that's where we got into a lot of maintenance issues. Right now, it consists of 3 full-time individuals. We have a maintenance technician, we have a property manager assistant, and a licensed property manager,
And they're full time.
and they're full-time. That is.
They're in the office over here.
In the office over here. That is the full-time employees that does manage the property, which is more staff than we've ever had in the past, under any other umbrella. In addition to, we have active board members, especially active officers of the board, that do help out on a daily basis.
Associate, what Associate did was we told Associate, hey, we need a property manager. And they said, okay, here's your property manager. And they sent us Heather, for those of you that remember Heather. And that was it. That's what Associate did.
And just to add a little bit,
They went out and they found.
they didn't send us Heather, they put out an ad, they charged us triple for the ad. They said, pick out of these candidates that applied to the ad, sent us the applications. I interviewed her, board members interviewed her, we hired her, we discussed what we're gonna pay. They said, that's great. We'll put her through our 2 weeks worth of training and send her your way. And you're gonna pay her entire salary, and you're gonna pay an additional 30% on top of it because, well, that's the contract you signed with us. That's the way management companies work. We found Heather, not them. But just in a nutshell, they all operate around that same.
Everybody agrees with this.
So,
Everybody, every person I've talked to.
We got a bunch more questions here, so I'm gonna just keep pushing.
start talking, so.
Let's see the last, I did that one, okay. Why was there a shortfall in last year's budget? What areas created the shortfall? This is a really complex question that would be answered, could be the meeting for a whole 2-hour-long meeting. So I don't want to dig real deep into it. The short answer is that you can look at the budget, the 2023 budget. It will show the 2022 budget, and then it will show what the actual expenses were and what was projected to be the expenses. And for anybody looking for that, I would start there. Why are some areas not seeing an increase where the PV are? So the only area not seeing an increase is Sandpiper Crest. This area had a surplus of revenue due to the fact that the 2022 budget was calculated on the number of homes sold.
No, I'm gonna mirror my life.
Okay. Sold in the beginning of 2022, more units were sold throughout the year, and dues were collected based on those new units. So this created extra revenue for their budget, which they're carrying over into 2023. What is the contingency monthly assessment for, and how is it spent? Excuse me. So contingency funds are used for just that. By definition, a contingency is a future event or circumstance which are possible but cannot be predicted. And that's exactly what we use that money for. All businesses, all small businesses have contingency funds, and typically it's right around 10%. You probably have a contingency fund in your house for things that maybe you can't predict. Your transmission will go on your F-150 Ford truck for the second time, like mine. Can't predict these things. So that's what the contingency is for. It's for those unseen events. And this leads to the next question. If there is a hurricane, will there be a special assessment? And this is what the contingency is for. So if another hurricane comes through here and wreaks havoc, that will hopefully be, the contingency will be enough to cover it. Now, we can't guarantee, right? If the lake house completely blows off its moorings and falls over, the contingency fund might not be enough to cover everything. But it's always possible that the damage could exceed the budget. The goal is to not levy a special assessment. We're seeing now communities across Florida as a result of the hurricane. Some communities are seeing special assessments in the tens of thousands of dollars for homeowners. Exteriors, house maintenance, roofing, painting, and power washing. How is this determined to be needed? What is used to determine the timing of repainting, re-roofing, and power washing? Is there a schedule? What is the difference between upkeep and maintenance? Okay, so the reserve study is what we use to outline the timing for these types of maintenance issues. Earlier this year, we hired an outside third-party company. That's what they do, is they do reserve studies for communities. They go through your entire community, everything that you're responsible for. They estimate how its expected life and how much it would take to repair. And then they put that on a 30-year plan. How would, I assume they meant who would address a bat infestation, the homeowner or the board? Removal of bat infestations is the responsibility of the homeowner. Miscellaneous.
Thank you.
Sir,
Interject here, I'm sorry if I'm being rude. I've got a building over on the on Colony Line, it's across from the Eaton Realty where the preserve is, has the retaining wall, which I pay monthly for. I don't know what, because nothing is happening there. What, and we're in the process, we're talking about exterior, work. What is the schedule? What is going on? Nobody cleans that retaining wall. Nobody cleans the side. It's all pressure washed off. There is, and then the preserve itself is totally unmanaged. Nobody does anything. However, there is the pest company comes around there. I see that. So who does everything else? I mean, I'm paying every monthly.
You had a lot of questions there and address it.
Thank you.
Please calm your aggression, but I do have some answers.
Good.
The retaining walls, what you pay for primarily is the reserve of the retaining walls and pressure washing of the retaining walls.
Right.
Now, you're gonna say it hasn't been serviced, and God damn, you're right, it hasn't been serviced.
Yeah.
What's
up?
Yeah, what's up? We intend to service it this year. It's never been serviced in the past years due to a lack of funds.
Okay, so I lived it for 4 freaking years. And what the heck is going on? Look, it says they're gonna take care of it.
But
Nobody does. Who is? I've gone to HOA.
again, the aggression,
Saying, see, and then.
calm it down. You're here, please take it down. I'm trying to,
Well, this is a frustrating matter.
and I agree with you, but I need you to take it down a notch.
Cool.
Okay? What we're trying to do is, we're trying to tell you is that we plan on taking care of these issues this year. I cannot speak for the years prior where we just didn't have any money, and I could even show you why, and we're talking about why through the answering of these questions, there was no money. It's because the master was drowning, spending all of yours in all of the service areas. Boards before you were taking all your service money and saying, can't afford to do the power washing, gotta pay for the pool guy. That's sort of thing with Wilton Strand
So this whole thing about farce.
was a farce.
Okay, so what's the schedule to take care of it now?
Our schedule is this
You're
year.
talking about.
Our schedule is this year to get those managed and taken care of. Patty was just walking just a week ago, looking at those structures themselves. So they are on a this year's schedule, to be completely honest with you. Now, as far as the berm that you're speaking of, or the landscaping area, I gotta look at our map, and I'll look at it with you tonight if you want, and tell you exactly, is it CDD property or if it HOA? If it is HOA property, we're gonna take care of it next week.
Well, I tell you, I've gone through this for 4 to 5 years, and everybody goes like this. Nobody, you know, you or the other.
No, not me. You've never done it.
HOA, pardon me.
Not the same thing, sir.
Or HOA. I'm not accusing anybody personally.
Feels like,
I know it's a, you know, it's a group, an association thing.
sure.
But,
I
you
know,
know, this is totally frustrating and everything, you know, but I see that bit. It's like, well, what the hell for?
Sure.
You know, in the trees.
You gotta take
it. Trees.
you gotta take it, you gotta take
And
it.
which is only going to make the roof being repaired sooner, which is another hit for everybody.
Sir, and
You know?
depending on the location of the trees, if it's a CDD tree, we're not even in control of it. And we've done that. We've gone back and forth with the CDD on specific parallel units, asking them, please cut these. They're going to cause damage to the roof. And they don't do it. There is no recursive action for them not doing it. They don't do it. The CDD meetings are the first Thursday of every.
Yeah, and then, you know, look, I'm trying to go to the meeting, they schedule up and they cancel, and then, you know, somebody.
Hold on a second. For starters, they're just, I think they've been canceled like twice in history. They're every first Thursday of the month at 10 a.m. The problem is they're 10 a.m., which I have asked them to change. They repeatedly say, we will not, residents won't show anyway. If you email them, you'll get a generic response back, and they're not going to assist you unless you come to a meeting. So what we do in return is, if you email Patty gets over to either myself or her, and she will represent you at the meeting. Or she will get over to Matt, who is the liaison between us and the CDD, which is new this year. And he will represent you at the meeting.
Okay, so now I don't know who these people are now, that's
Yeah, she is right though, sir. Let me cut this. We'll get back to you at the end. We gotta get through this.
Thanks, Tom.
I get talking too much and. We'll continue.
Okay, so just tell me what's happening, is it gonna get resolved or not?
Hey, you're not the only one.
Yes.
I just, continuation of my question, I never got answered.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to have residents engaging with each other. And having conflict.
I'll tell you what. My, deal is with HOA and CDC and everybody. Nobody wants to take responsibility. And I have lived in this community for years, and John can attest to that. And this is bullshit. You know, now we've got a new management system. I never got notified of a new management system. You tell me, we need to set up.
Sir, calm it down.
Fuck off.
Maybe you've been here too long.
You're fucked up. You know what, you don't want to do your job. You're everybody shirks.
Sir, can you please learn?
So,
Okay. I'm sorry. I think it was inevitable.
This is perfect. The next question. How is it determined that a security guard was needed?
Well, no, it needs.
I just add a little levity to the situation, but to answer the question. It was never determined that a security guard per se was needed. The budget is for security improvements and not necessarily for a paid guard or a patrol. So the board found it, and they met just last week for the first time, a security committee to assess the problem set and develop solutions. The need for this was determined after repeated vandalism of lakes and pool areas, as well as other security and policy enforcement issues throughout the neighborhood. Incidentally, thank you all for your patience.
Now, I know you're moving on. I just want to add one blanket statement to that because I know there'll be more questions. It was never determined that a security guard is needed, but I'll be completely honest. Blood and bone will be needed. A person will be needed at some point here. And I have a feeling the security committee is going to come to that realization. It was never determined that security companies needed, but I do know we need to put money into security to fix our problems this year. That's where that budget came from. And the $100,000 figure came from, well, if I didn't want to invest my own time into figuring out how, And if we couldn't put together a security committee to figure out how to spend the money, then you just pick up the phone and you call a security company. I did that. So what are they gonna charge? Well, they're gonna charge $98,000 for,
But we have a
Two persons.
security committee that's looking into this.
yes, we do, which
And
is,
do we have a list of residents who's on that committee yet?
yes, we do.
Yes, they met last week. for the
They're all
first
posted.
time.
Yes, we do.
Is that available on Applebee's, the list of the?
Sure is. And actually, that's why I'm gonna mirror this when we're done here. I wanna make sure you all know where to get stuff now and also where to get it in the future. So. Okay.
Okay, let's see, the covenants state that grass landscaping inside the fences is the responsibility of the homeowner, so why did the HOA pay for the replacement of the sign inside the fences? I don't, if the person that's here that asked this question, could you please clarify? Is that your question?
I know at least 3 of the homes that have fences on them were soldered replaced this last summer twice.
Mhm.
And I know in the grand scheme of things, that's not a lot, because I don't believe guys pay like 400,000 or something for the solid replacement. But I mean, we pay for grass solid replacement inside fenced yards when it's clearly, as you read in our review, not the responsibility of the HOA.
I think I can answer that, but I don't have the definitive answer. I'll need to defer to Patty, for that, for a little more
So,
clarification.
I mean, and mine is more on my neighborhood almost and we can. But it could be an ongoing issue, if we're keeping up with the landscaping that's inside the fenced areas, that's in our, we're clearly not responsibility of the HOA. It's gonna end up.
Yeah, it's not, I believe it's not our responsibility to maintain it when it's in a fenced area, primarily because we can't get a riding lawnmower through, but it is our responsibility to replace. Again,
That's not clear in the charter now.
I could be wrong. I would have, that's my understanding of it. So that would be why we probably did it. But I can follow up and get detailed with it.
And I'm not trying to get any of my fellow careful owners in trouble or say that they bought that was my issue.
That's actually a good point. You you can't maintain it, why would you have to replace it?
I believe it's in there, but it might not be.
So the last section that we discussed is stuff related to the budget. Budget specific questions. And there was 6 questions, which could be basically grouped into 3 sections. I'll just read them aloud and then I will address them. So question 1, why do page 1 total monthly assessments not align with the totals approved in the following assessments? The questionnaire asks, am I missing something about how the expense budget is calculated monthly? Total expense budget for 2023 divided by number of units divided by months equals monthly assessment. Our expense budget PV there's a lot of numbers in here. Forgive me if I don't read them, but I will just read the answer. So whoever asked this question, yes, you are missing something. There is an error in your math, and that math is the prior year carryover calculations. And so it results in quite a few dollars of difference. So for example, the PV had a deficit of $12,479 last year, which is the carryover. This was borrowed from other service areas that had a surplus. So this must be paid back and has been added to the dues to be collected. A deficit or surplus directly affects the new budget and can increase or reduce it respectively. This issue of borrowing from one area to support another will no longer be a problem going forward, as we have explained in quite a few board meetings. How do I sum this up quickly? We used to have 2 accounts for the entire HOA, an operating account and a reserve account. We now have 11 accounts, 1 operating and 1 reserve account for each service area, so that your money goes to your service area. We have the master operating reserves, and then we have 1 payroll. So this-
You guys have done a great job with that.
That was this year's goal. Next year is all of the landscaping, the retaining walls, the irrigation problems. Like, you can't fix everything in 1 year, but this next year, we're gonna tackle this stuff. We're gonna break it, right, Tommy?
The things that never got the attention, the things that never got the gentleman's praise.
I don't fault him for being angry. I would be too, if I was paying for things and didn't see the result. This year, we will fix it.
In general, we're upset with people.
I'm sorry. Why did We did not overspend the approved amount for maintenance, but have increased the budget for this year. Can I have an example of what this maintenance covers for the pair of villas? So the increase, this is a rather complex question, which again, we could have an entire meeting about. But long story short, the increase is due to a 10% rate of inflation, with the average rate of labor going up 13% to allow for a buffer. If there is an excess at the year's end, it will be used to offset another line item and become a surplus next year. So this leads into the next questions about surpluses and carryovers. SC expenses for 2023 were budgeted for, okay, a bunch, there's a lot of numbers in this question. I don't want to go through that. They should, basically they're saying, long story short, that Westlake and Sandpiper Crest, thank you. They are seeing the numbers.
Some of the communities had a circuit.
Yeah, the numbers between what the dues are and what the amount they're being charged, according to these calculations, are not matching. And the answer to this question is similar to the answer for regarding the pair of villas, but the kind of the reverse is true here. So these areas are actually owed money, and as such have had their dues reduced to reflect. So Sandpiper Crest had a carryover surplus of 70,000 from last year, and that was due to the previous question we answered, where they were charged for a certain number of houses, they were budgeted for a certain number of houses, and they got more and more sold houses, and they collected that money but didn't spend it. Westlake has a carryover surplus of about $10,000 from last year.
And, Jason, back me up if I screw this up a little bit, but you know, what really made this tumble is going back to the fact that we had 2 bank accounts. So even boards and management companies previous to us would look and say, you're flush with cash, buy whatever you want. And they would do that on an as-needed basis. But at the end of the day, what they were doing is they were spending services money to maintain stuff. It's kind of like double taxation. You're paying for a specific, you're paying for mulch, and you're paying for the pool to be maintained. But since they spent the money elsewhere, you didn't get your mulch, but they took your mulch money and used it to pay the pool guy, which you already kind of paid for. So financial committee went through God knows how many hours and backed out all the data that they possibly could to actually pull this apart and say, okay, this was Pair Villas, this was Sandpiper Crest, this was Westlake, and see, okay, which units are actually in a surplus or in a deficit? Which units does the master actually owe money to, because we took it and used it inappropriately, in my opinion. And then they get a surplus and the master ends up paying. And the adverse is true if you're in the hole. So that's where that came from. And that's why this year you see those oddball figures. That's not going to be next and should never be again, because there's never borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. Everyone has their own account. That's why the finances are a little wet. We have one.
That's it. That is the last question.
So that being said, before I want to talk to all of you, I really do. I just want to address a couple things. I feel like it's almost like war sometimes, right? We're not happy with you, or this board sucks. We're just your residents. We're not here to beat you up, or I don't get paid for any of this. Hell, I was racing to get down here from Newport Richie to make a 6 o'clock meeting I couldn't do. So first off, we're not your enemy. We are not your enemy.
And we feel the same.
I
We're
don't want that perception.
Yes.
Really not.
Concur.
That's,
Ma'am.
I understand that nobody wants to go to war or be at war or that kind of thing. But my question is, so I understand that pair villas were in the hole. However, so the increase was made in our HOA to substantial. But when you made this increase, and I'm not being sarcastic, did it ever occur to you that maybe the people can't afford this huge increase monthly? Because it is a huge it's a huge increase, and you know, I am a single parent and I can't afford it. And I want to sell my house and buy a house 7% interest, but I'm paying 3.3. You see what I'm saying?
I 100%, and if I was looking at mortgage loans today at 7.25. I can't do anything with that, it's too high, so. Yes, but to answer your question, how did the board take it? We took it like a cancer diagnosis. It's terminal. We don't want to do it. We don't know how to answer the personal financial struggle of each individual homeowner. It is not a choice we took lightly. It's not one we wanted to do. But if we didn't increase to course correct this for 2023, 2024 is going to be abysmal at best. We can't fix the cancer treatment without doing the increase. It's just math. We did consider it. It's no choice. It's like the county, it's the property tax assessor. Consider when it comes in and jumps your property tax. It doesn't. It's just math.
Why do you need to correct the deficit in a year? Is it a big deficit? Why does it need to be fixed overnight?
It's not just fixed overnight. The deficit is small. It's not the deficit we're fixing. It's the continued spending. We wouldn't be able to operate 2023 in a positive energy. That's what you're paying for. The deficit is rather small. It's the fact that these are your operating costs. So if we said what we're suggesting, right? Let's just, it's too high. We're just going to come down $100. We would be literally short that money at the end of the year because it's operating expense. It's not like we're just fixing the deficit. Yes, the deficit's in there, but that's a minor cost.
I can't give you money that I don't have.
I understand, but that pull and tug, that's not our conversation. So I'm gonna respectively ask, let's not have it, right? It's just not. I'm not your debtor, I'm not your creditor, I'm not your accountant, I'm not even a licensed CPA. That's this man's department. I can't help you with that field on how to pay something you can't afford to do. I can only tell you why we did it the way we did it.
I understand why you did it, but that's a phenomenal increase.
I understand.
With the master, we're looking at, like a 289% increase or something. It was rather substantial. I resigned for that. I've cut other things. And it will force some people to leave and either become renters or settle in.
And it came up, and again, it came up, it was talked about, and so if you watch those meetings, we took it like a cancer.
It'll affect property values as well.
Yep, sure will.
And I'm talking negatively because these folks that think they're buying a $374,000 house now have to qualify for a $450,000 loan.
Something has to give.
So, yeah, it's going to affect prices.
Just to be the adverse, the reverse is true too. A house worth $374,000 and a failing HOA around it is just as
Absolutely
bad. So,
absolutely.
and that's why we
But like I said, our real, is it my turn to talk or I?
it's
Okay.
we like to keep it civil, 3 minutes, but there's not much of this here, so.
Yeah, so I'm gonna ask you up front, because I sat and listened, other than the one question I had that I needed to have answered, and I'd like the same courtesy. Like I said, we're not enemies, but you guys might take what I have to say as enemy, and that's not the case. But I do wanna point out a couple of things, I'm not throwing stones, but I'll tell you, I've listened to your responses at the Zoom meeting with Annika. I've listened to responses in here, and I do think that you selectively apply documents to a situation. For instance, the reason I asked the question about where is that document, and I forget the name of it, I wrote it down, but is if you look in our bylaws, okay, in the bylaws, I'm going to read to you, I'm going to quote to you from the bylaws. Service area committees made up of parcel owners in the service area will determine the nature and extent of services that it desires the association to provide. Cut and dry, that's in our bylaws. So that says to me that we should have our own service area committee. That's also in the bylaws, that it can have up to 5 people. And I definitely want that to happen.
I think that's awesome.
And that we determine, so it doesn't say to me that I need 67% of all of the Fish Hawk HOA to approve that. It says that committee decides what we want the HOA to pay for. So, but when we ask that question, what we get from, the response we got is, oh, no, you can't do that, and, you know, the more, you know, you have to change the charter,
Kyle,
and,
can I please help? with
Sure.
this, just to help. Again, I'm not against it. Everything I'm being told from our attorney, and they later down, he pulls it out, he finds the email with me, yellow, I get it, it's there. I promise you, we're missing something. I say here because I'm probably missing part of it, and you're probably missing.
oh, I no doubt.
But hold on, I have an easy solution for that. Let me tell you what I've been told, and then let me offer something to say. I've been told by our attorney that it needs to go to a vote amongst the paired villa owners. There's a very high percentage, I am in front of me, there's a very high percentage that has to pass affirmative of title holder owners. Then it needs to go to the entire neighborhood as a vote, and that too needs to pass. That's why I say it's very difficult to make these changes. Now, if we're wrong,
I didn't respond to that point, and it is-
well, before you respond, if you don't agree with that, or you think I'm wrong, I might very well be, can you please email me to it? I'll CC it with the attorney, and then you and I will be all on the same page when he emails back.
So here's,
So there's your point about from the bylaws, you said the service area determines the services provided.
yeah.
And that very well may be true. What is the process for determining that? Based off the information that I read earlier this afternoon, just trying to find an answer to this. It requires an 80% affirmative vote from everyone in your community and the HOA overall.
So
Writ
have
large.
you read the Florida statutes?
Yes,
You have. Okay, because the Florida statutes actually override HOA documents, and the Florida statutes don't say 67% of the entire HOA.
So it's my understanding and training that's tax statement is.
Now, I did ask nicely, here's something, did everybody hear me? And again, this is so we can communicate.
Sure.
Because you tend to run roughshod over some folks. Did I not sit here and keep my mouth shut? And did I ask these people to listen? So I'm not angry, but I'm going to demand the same courtesy and respect that I gave you.
Okay.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, I've read the statutes, they're all right here. I've consulted with an attorney, and I don't want to go that route. But you can't keep giving us different answers, and you can't have documentation in the HOA that says two different things. Okay? Because if we can't resolve it, and I'm not threatening, but I promise you that if we can't resolve this issue, then I'm going to hire an attorney. I have to, because I believe that what we're doing here, here's why I'm really upset about it, because the amount that we're paying for that service, I've got a video, it's a 6-minute video, you're more than happy, I'll email it to
I've
you.
seen it.
It is, my lawn is horrific,
It's horrible.
and I work on it, okay? I mean, I work on it. I'd rather pay for it myself. That's, that's the bottom line, and that's a significant portion of our money, it's the landscaping. And then the other point, I mean, I'm gonna give you guys this letter. Yeah, I'm gonna give you all a copy of it, and if I have extra copies, I'll give a couple of it. But here's what I'm telling you, I tried to read every document. I went to AppFolio, downloaded the paired villas stuff, and not every document was in the paired villas folder. So then I read every single statute as it relates to condominium or homeowner associations in Florida. And I'm going to make sure that I take advantage of what the statute offers me as a homeowner in the Fish Hawk HOA. And you can bet that I will be definitely involved. But here's the thing, like the notifications via AppFolio or the notifications via Facebook, that I don't always get that. I don't always pay attention to that. I think there was something to be said for being notified in writing of something, and I can promise you, next budget committee, if I am in this town, if I am not out of town, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be there with the statute in my hand and all of the appropriate HOA documents, because what I want is for us everything to be smooth and for people not to be shocked with an 112% increase. And I don't think that we were, I know there's some disagreement about this, but just so you know, me and the other homeowners, we don't think we were properly noticed on that increase. And you already know that, we already said that. Lastly, I mean, I don't want to take everybody else's time. If we get back around to me, we'll get back around to me. But here's the thing with the sprinkler system. I did see a document that said you guys can, you can replace the stuff with the sprinkler. Here's the deal. Is it fiscally responsible? As fiduciaries, you are fiduciaries, you have a fiduciary responsibility to us, the homeowners. Is it fiscally responsible to replace my control unit, which is absolutely functioning perfect? It looks brand new, it's in perfect condition.
Inside.
I don't need you to replace it. I'm watering my lawn. If somebody's not watering their lawn, fine them. Please, find them. You're taking a broad brush, and again, I know you're not making any decisions today. I want you to understand why some of us are so upset with this. There's a problem. The problem is you've got people in the paired villas that aren't taking care of, they're not doing their part to turn their damn sprinkler on and water their yard. Take care of that problem. You're a jarhead, just like me. You don't take a broad brush to that problem. You go to the root of it. And the root of it is the people that either don't know how to use their sprinkler system or refuse to pay for the water. But that's not the majority of the homeowners. So, and as it relates to that sprinkler system, I want you to know now, and again, it's not a threat, I'm just telling you how strongly I feel about it. That requires an internet connection. What if I don't have internet? How are you going to connect to the internet? And my water, my decision. Your decision is if I don't take care of my lawn, you fine me. But I believe a judge, because that's where I believe that would go with me, is a judge is going to say, hey, you can't control his water bill. If you want to, I'm fine. If y'all want to put a control unit on and you guys get your own water system set up, the HOA gets their own water system set up. Hey, I have no problem with this at all. I'm just saying it's my water bill. I got to pay it. And I don't want to get too wrapped around the axle on that. I'm going to give you guys this. There's more in here about the Florida statutes and what I think that and this is my official correspondence. That's the sign. There's more in there, and I am requesting to read some specific records in accordance with the statute, which I believe we have a right to review them. And that'll just give me some more information for the next time we meet. If anybody else wants this, just in your info.
The irrigation system and everything, of our units is a big issue with home. The cost of it and the placement of them outside so that they're open to use or hammering or just a big issue. I think in general that it's a cost that's not needed, and I second Kyle's thought that yes, if a specific homeowner is not watering or taking care of their lawn, it's really the only thing we should be responsible for is the water, not the pests, not the mold, not the cutting, not the fertilizer. So if it's truly a watering issue, it should be specific to that unit owner. Now, if we do go the smart irrigation route, if that decision is, again, we have to be resigned to that, why can't that still be inside the garage? Because if it allows for you guys to monitor the individual unit owners, watering, what days, how much, why can't that still be inside the garage? I'm not happy with that changing of the irrigation system, but if it does have to be replaced, why can't it still be inside? Because again, it allows the monitoring, all the stuff. I have another question about watering. You mentioned deep wells. How does a deep well affect our watering costs or budgeting? Because we're on county water system. And then I guess my next question is, we are considered homes via the legal classification of residences. We have to insure our homes as an HO3, which is an individual unit. We are not condos, we are not townhouses, we are not HO6s. So we insure everything from the shingles, the stucco, the windows in. I know it's an issue because we're paired, so roofs would be an issue, but we have to ensure the shingles, the stucco in. Sandpiper are true townhomes. They are interiors and they are not the exterior. They're a condo or a townhome. So if, as homeowners, we have to ensure the roofs, the stucco, the windows, everything in, and I know it's in our bylaws about maintenance, and I read that one out, but I'm like, I'm an insurance, and I'm like, well, I suppose I'm insure this is a home, I'm insuring my roof. I don't quite understand, the maintenance versus a roof replacement. Now, insurance doesn't cover maintenance, it doesn't cover a blown off shingle, incorrectly, nailed on a roof. It doesn't cover it as it gets old and ages and wears. In Florida, if we try, any of us, if we have a shingle roof, if it's past 10 years old and you try to find a new insurance carrier, they're gonna say, I want a shingle roof replaced, if it's 10 years or older. I think it's gonna last 20 years, metal roof 30 years. But I guess my question is, if we are insuring them as unit owners, as homeowners, what is the true responsibility of the HOA for our roofs and exteriors? And what is the maintenance schedule? And I know you said painting before 2006, that's up to 3 years and 10 months away. Some of the units are going on 7 or 8 years old. They were built in 2016. Mine was built in 2018. Some of the newer ones were built last month, I think maybe 2021 or 2022. The last ones were finished. So there's a wide range of what's needed for pressure washing, painting, and maintenance, I guess, of roofs. I don't know what you guys, or I should say you guys, the HOA handles for maintenance of roofs or those are the questions I written down.
Let me,
Questions.
yeah, so,
Good try to answer.
in case you guys haven't learned anything about me, I don't do well like this. I don't mean to strong arm and cut people off. I just do it because there's a question and I have an answer for it now. So I've been hit up with probably 6 questions in the past week. I don't remember the first one.
Yeah.
So I can't answer you. I've been taking some notes to try to answer what I thought was important, and I had some follow-up questions. And I want to answer your question. I couldn't tell you what the first one was. Okay, it's just too much. So I may have you repeat it so that I can answer it.
The first one was back to, why, if we are resigned to going to smart water irrigation,
We are, but yeah,
why can't they be inside the garage?
I can answer that to some degree. They don't have to be outside. Okay,
It's a big issue with unit owners.
they could be inside. I haven't gotten the testing. There was a question about Wi-Fi. I am tasked with doing what's called a WISP, a wireless ISP analysis on all the neighborhoods to try to get a mesh network throughout the entire area for a lot of reasons. One of them, smart sprinkler control, security cameras, license plate cameras, front gates so that we don't have to have multiple fiber lines that we're paying monthly for. So these are a lot of reasons I'm tasked with. So we will be providing. Your question is, can it be inside? Yes, if the mesh bashes through all the stone structures, sure. But if it doesn't, then the easy solution is move the unit outside.
It's a big loss, and for individual unit owners, we are not happy with that.
I understand that, but again, here's the thing, where I said it's not really an argument. The money's there, it's getting funded. The question is, how is it gonna be spent on that? It will most likely be spent. We're past that.
If you're saying that's a done deal, I mean,
It's
if you're saying.
I'm
that's a done
saying-
deal,
I'm saying smart sprinklers and the funding for it is a done deal.
But it's funded.
Well, I know it's funded because we're paying.
the rates went up, so.
Look,
That doesn't mean it has to be done.
but it is already at this particular moment in time, a done deal.
No, again, we went to the smart system because we saw the watering wasn't coming, we were replacing the solar, so it was a cost. These are the reasons why we developed the smart system.
Because you saw the wiring issue inside replacement.
Yeah, I mean,
That's part of it, but no, not entirely. It's the whole big reason is one big ball of wax, right? A smart irrigation system is smart. The manual timers are stupid, folks.
So, but again, and we already know that.
Right,
We are
you-
replacing the.
you have bad timers.
because we want to replace the issue of watering some owners, not watering some are watering, and then other sort, which you have to replace because of that reason, which is a cost, everything. So you said in our last board meeting, you said that we will have a smart system so that we can reduce that cost of sort replacing, because that will make sure that watering is happening on time, right?
That's part of it, yeah.
I'm not sure of it. But county does the governance, right, every year that this sort of what need to be done in the summer, or at least like last year I thought. Weekly once only can water. I think I thought somewhere. And I think I'm doing, so because of that, if the thought becomes all around, so we are not doing double investment there. Like you're gonna again have to do a sort, because the county say that you should only water one time. Then you have a smart system, which you say that I'm gonna make sure I do the proper water. So I'm not making a double, like charge.
No, I don't see it. I don't see the double charge personally, myself, but
Well,
I think it could be.
It is to make sure that we don't have a sort.
we have, if we're paying for watering, but during the summer, we can only water once a week, no matter.
For now, I don't know how long that's going to be, but
Actually, that.
Question is again, we can have those strategies. Why do you want to put this part? Because I know in the last two board meetings, you have said that we have some $60,000 of on the start replacement, which was a huge. We don't want to incur this every year, so it's going to be best for everyone to have a smart system, so that in future, we don't replace start, we'll have this working country.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I'm assuming as a person that cares about that one, you water your lawn regularly, correct? You.
In fact, each time we that's not the questions.
So let's say for some reason outside of your control, your grass dies. And the HOA says, well, and the landscaper says, it's because you didn't water it properly. And you say, I did water it properly. Landscaper says you didn't water it properly. Here's a bill for $2,500 to replace your side. How do we prove that you watered it properly and it's not faulty side?
Are we doing this?
Yes and no. The water bill, maybe if it goes on, maybe it filled your pool like I did.
it's not an argument of like this. The bottom line, you shouldn't have to ask, how are you gonna prove something? You should just.
You don't want to do it. You don't want that to
Already,
do it.
some people really concerned that, why this year? Then we should have thought about this, in order to do this, we could have put it next year, we would have thought about not doing this. I'm just bringing the point, I'm not saying that you should do it or not, but there was a chance, or there was a scope, where we could have thought about this, and let's not do this irrigation, because we already have 10% labor on this one, 10% cost. We put in 121% increase on the individual components, this would have been reduced. It was not needed that everything to be fixed in a one month. Tomorrow, we have another election coming in, you may not be there, or someone else will come up, and he would not be doing this policy, would change it, and he will say, I'm not accountable, you are another guy, I have to go in this 10% again. So, and then I have another question on the same.
That's exactly the point.
Yeah, I have another question, you said that there's no cap of 10%, of any, there's no cap of any increment, right? I'm not, this is not a question, but it's trying to understand here. How can we as an HOA and as a community bring a process where we say that if there's an increase in 10% of any one's HOA member monthly, there's a proper voting system done for the creditors to the agreement. 10% okay, because tomorrow you need 100%, next board comes and we have 1,000%, who's going to question that? There's like anyone can do anything there, right?
There has to be a certain,
Why don't we have this kind of process?
yes, there's two different questions here, but you're asking why a process isn't there that you think should be there, because it's not.
How can, that's what my question is, how can this tomorrow?
The hard part is you have to change, I keep repeating, you have to change your charter. It is very difficult. It takes a very high positive vote to change that, and it takes money to get it recorded. And then it needs to be going to a second vote, back to what Kyle was saying. So Kyle, I should get you in touch, you, me and the attorney on a quick phone call, and we'll get to the bottom of it, whatever it is, it is.
Yeah, we had a disagreement, and
Right.
and like I said, there's probably some case law out there as well that will modify the statute, but again, I go back to our bylaws and the service area committee. We don't have a single service area committee.
No, we don't.
It's in our
Well,
bylaw.
we do, Westlake has a service area.
Okay, so that's good, but we need to get,
I'm all for it.
we need to get one.
Yeah.
And, but again, I'm not gonna, I would actually set that up and get people to accept. I'm not gonna do that.
Kyle,
If they
Can
have
you,
no
can you make
say.
it to this Thursday's board meeting?
Yes,
Can you please? Because
yeah.
I'm gonna ask exactly that to the entire membership. Can we put together, can I put on Facebook a request for paired village service? committee? I wanna do that. I agree. Now that we have people that are interested, let's take advantage of it. But ma'am, I'm sorry. You
I
have,
would say back to the, what Deepak was saying about the smart irrigation. It's not popular at all in Pure Villas. We don't like the lack of control. We don't like the force. I don't know why, like what Kyle had said, why for even this year, can we sidebar things? Can we do, I know it's part of the budget right now, but without paying for it and committing to the actual change, can we sidebar the actual changes to the irrigation system?
short answer to that.
And I know we're-
No, we can't. We can't for a few different reasons. Okay, well, one reason would be finances. We now have this surplus of tax of money that we're gonna be taxed on at the end of the year because we didn't use it for what we said we would use. So that's a financial reason why not to do that. And the other reason is it's already funded. Why would we pause it? Why would a group of 7 people that have voted to do something now just not do it?
Well, number one, none of the 7 people are paying for it and live here.
Yeah, you have a fiduciary responsibility to
Well,
us,
for starters, you don't,
and you're,
I-
it's not broken.
well, hold on, it's, in my opinion, it is broken because of the year and the data system, how horrible it functions, but that's.
It's probably the same irrigation system that all of.
It
you
is,
did.
it's the builder grade
Yeah.
stuff, it's the one when I bought my brand new house in 2017 over there, I ripped it off the wall and put in a smart one, a day
Everybody
later.
does that have-
And I'm 2019, mine was built
Folks,
in
I
2019.
understand your viewpoints on it, but the facts are, it's funded and it's a project being done in 2023. Jason, you had something to say?
So yes, having worked on your budget for several hundred hours, I'm probably one of the best people here to speak on it. That's, I think it was 60,000 that we put towards yours,
Mhm.
was basically the equivalent of what we spent on your sod replacement for just 1 year. So the intent was to go ahead and rather than, you know, let's do 60,000 this year, 60,000 next year, 60,000,
for
but
that.
every single year, try this system out, put in the control because we would get several service requests from parent villas saying, I changed this, and each time the irrigation company have to come out, it's a minimum $85 call that isn't covered in your budget. So this gives us a lot more control, so that if there was an issue, in theory, we can have, you know, next year's budget being more maintained as a stable amount versus putting out, you know,
That,
60,000.
that replacement happened in the 5 years prior to that, I've been an owner since 2007.
Again, because the money was most likely used, no.
But that was just an annual $60,000 spending.
Right, but on financial statements that were being provided to us by associate, that is what I was seeing was $60,000, you know, being applied.
So I don't remember.
They probably shouldn't.
But again, so we're committed to the smart water irrigation system. Those are gonna be changed. Please put them inside your houses.
They can say that.
It's a try, I don't know,
You said the math.
I don't know.
It's not a done, I mean, I mean this, and I'm not threatening, I have already consulted an attorney, and I will hire one before, to seek an injunction if, when you get to that point, and I'm not threatening, but I'm saying that's how strongly I feel about it.
I appreciate the candor.
My question is.
It's okay.
why the children? My question is why the children, this is an unpopular, particular topic is, and I'm hearing much of this. let's try it out, let's prove it. I'm like, when we see this thing, why don't we skip this part and make members happy, 100 people happy, and then up next year? I was thinking that, why didn't I think about those things, and making the budget popular, making everyone happy?
Is everyone aware there's a 6-foot water pipe going in the CDD area right behind watercolor
Oh, yeah.
in the ground?
I
They're
know.
gonna dig all that up. Does anybody agree with that? I don't agree with that. I don't want that going right behind my house.
But that's right behind your house. We're talking about.
We're gonna have to look at it, we're gonna see it, it's gonna dig for you. What I'm saying is,
Not in my
I'm
bed.
just saying.
Part of the problem is you mentioned 100 people. And neither at the budget workshop nor here tonight have I ever heard from 100 Fairfield owners.
That's again going back to the one which we talked about,
Yeah.
board meetings, you should have given budget.
No, but I mean, never.
Okay, some of that, more of that, they don't give a shit, but some of that is notice.
I just want to.
Well, this meeting got great.
I definitely want to bring up here and record this, I know we record, I just definitely want, there was definitely a scope to make Fair Villas happy by not bringing this irrigation at this year when there was so much of inflation, people were not happy. We could have thought about it, and they could have a scope, which I think totally board members decided because they already made the decision, which was done by 70 people, and 100 people are not happy. I want to record that right now. So we all are aware, this is something which we haven't done better.
So,
can I ask a question? Why are you adamantly opposed to the installation of smart watering systems?
I'm adamantly opposed to that, because I'm adamantly opposed to the HOA controlling water that I pay for.
Yeah.
That is why.
So the HOA does that already.
No. nobody-
Whether we,
nobody's ever-
hold on, whether we've done it or whether we haven't done it, whether we've done a poor job at it. But going forward, the HOA does control, we have the authority, we, the HOA, not me, Mark Rosenthal. Is, the HOA has the authority to control your water in your specific area. It's in your charter.
So,
Then you need to pay for it.
I think-
No, that is not in the charter.
I've lived in areas before and.
I'm gonna, I
and
mean,
they've controlled,
that's what I'm,
but they-
that's what I'm saying.
So what I'm saying is nothing is changing. You don't want the smart controller to control your water, but you,
It is changing because y'all, nobody has ever come to my house and changed the water setting.
but they should have, in
Responsible.
normal HOA, that's exactly what happens. They knock on the door, landscaping here, I gotta check the
A
time.
normal HOA, actually, if it's a shared service, it's on their wall.
The irrigation system.
I mean, I've lived in
And.
the other fish shop.
It's not uncommon. They do it in Aqua, even though there's an outside. It's just-
More for, let's see, what, sprinkler heads are broken or all of them.
They run a zone, they check out.
For the district, Hillsborough County watering schedule, it's been inspected the last 5 or 6 years. I am during the summer months, I am on Friday, I'm going to make 30 minutes, and that's maybe to August or September, maybe it's June. But again, you're asking us to give up a lot of control of that, and we know you say the HOA is in control of it, but put them on the inside. We, if possible, if we can, and I know you said taxes. Sidebar this until 2024 and we're already paying for it. How are the deep wells gonna affect our prices because we're logged into the county?
I don't think the deep wells, is a thing. It was mentioned once, but that's not something that I think.
Our problem.
No, because someone else has brought it up as well
my,
in the past.
the statements I was reading was a conglomeration of the boards.
The problem with deep wells is, no matter how deep a well you go, it doesn't pump out enough water to be able to irrigate.
It was mentioned as something that was gonna take place.
They drive it, and they need time to.
I looked at the trails for 4 years when I first moved out here. We watered them. We had to dig a well 200 or 400 feet
Yeah.
deeper well, but that was for our yard. And that, how is that supposed to, why was that brought up and what is that supposed to do?
That has been brought up by several residents over time, so it's a good thing to address, because it's been brought up, why aren't we on well water, why aren't we on the water? Why don't we dig another well? Well, because we can't for globalized.
I don't think any of us were under the impression that we were getting low.
Someone was, and wouldn't it came up, trust me, someone was at one point.
It was brought up at the beginning of the.
Yeah, that's always been kind of sore subject over here, since over there they have the,
Yeah, reclaim.
Yeah.
Oh,
seems like they're afraid that the water.
That's all I wanted to say, Jennifer. I haven't looked enough into the system, Sean, and I were just talking about it yesterday, because everything we have in here is Hunter, so if we go with Hunter, we're talking to Gale with Ballinger on the Hunter irrigation system. My goal in a perfect world is a smart system to where, okay, maybe you don't have control, but you have insights. You just log in and look, see what zone is using what gallon. So if there's a setting you don't like or don't know, or you take it up with management and you fix it on the fly. So we're not trying to take away visibility, and it's not necessarily just full control is what we're looking for. I want you to have visibility.
In our summer months also, there, you could go 2 weeks without water, and you guys can go 2 weeks without water, because you get a storm come through and it rains every single day for 10, 14.
And a smart system will do that. A smart system checks the local
So,
weather.
I mean, so saying that. Looking at the smart system watering bill will tell us if we're watering or not, is it gonna count for?
No, that's exactly what it does. It checks all the local radar stations, right? It checks them every 15 minutes.
Because I want to put in the summer.
So it doesn't rely on the little cork rainbird sensor, then the cork fails, and if you don't replace the cork.
So the other.
There are benefits.
The other thing, about the sprinkler system, again, like I said, is my house was built in 2019. My control unit is crappy, it's a manual control unit, it's in perfect condition. Not fiscally responsible in my mind to replace that. So you're making that decision for me. So that's the two issues I have, and like I said, I'm not the only one, but I'm probably the only one that's gonna sit here and tell you straight up how strongly I feel about it. When it's time, when my sprinklers, when my control unit is gonna blow up one day and you wanna replace it with a wireless, I'm probably less irritated about that.
I can respect all that. I really do. It's not even about necessarily a
So
respect or disagreement. It's just, it's kind of going.
if we're gonna change these and please, I'm throwing this out there, I wasn't part of the budget committee, I have watched. Most of last year's meetings via Zoom, I don't usually attend the meetings in person. Is it possible to do the homeowners that we had issues with dead or dying lawns first? Try them out with those units?
There's no way, first off, the Wi-Fi infrastructure is part of that course. And it's not a one unit Wi-Fi infrastructure. It's a mass global system across several acres. So it's a put it in or don't put it in at all. So once that's in, you're kind of, your feet are already wet. Right?
So
The second problem is the same thing when you're bidding out for these things to be installed, or, doing onesie twosie at a time.
So.
And then how do you pick the onesie twosie, and then how do you sit down with that resident and tell them that they're the ones?
Let's why picture this out to. The maintenance, the pressure washing, the painting, the roofs, even though they're built up to 7 or 8 years difference. If
We're not gonna do all that painting at one time.
It's a 3-year time span based upon your homes that being built.
I want to move on, change subjects from sprinklers to, even though we are beach trees, we have to insure our homes like those. And I know you said sandpaper is running on a surplus right now. Those are 2 townhouses. You guys do have to replace their roofs. You do have to be responsible for the maintenance. And I'm sorry, I'm saying you guys, but I need the board, not you individually, the board. When I moved in the first 5 years, I think my monthly fees range from 128 to 140 and back down to like 128. That seems to be the range that sandpaper currently is in, around that 130, 140.
Higher than that.
Aren't they being set up for something similar?
Here's what happened when they did the reserve study. With phases 1 through 3, they found that your reserves were horrendously underfunded. Take the master, for instance. The master, each home was getting charged for the entire year the equivalent of $6.50 per home to do the entire reserve for the master.
We have a $16 a month. I don't know.
No. Prior to it was $6.50 for the entire year of each of your homes was going into the reserve for the master. Nobody in the right mind would think that replacing the pool for $6,500 a year would ever take place. But that's how they got people to buy it. The reserve study showed that Sandpiper and Westlake being newer, their reserves, the calculations that they had done when the developers were putting in their funding, which they don't have to fund, I mean, the entire replacement costs, was more in line with the projected replacement cost than the other 3 years, which unfortunately meant because with the fair villas, the reserve study showed that you're painting, yes, it's being spread out across 3 years, still there's a tremendous shortfall on what the actual cost.
So the scheme has started now, 2023.
It
Ended.
started in 2024 is what the reserve study shows. They broke it out because they understood if they lumped everything together as one group, just all of obviously your reserve amounts would go even higher. They spread it out across the 3 zones based upon when your home was being built, on the lifespan for the paint. And obviously the same thing will happen with the roofing. With that end of life.
You don't quite understand what you guys are, the board is responsible for without yours. Don't quite.
Actually,
we have to ensure.
It is in the charter, we.
Maintenance, but what's the?
That's what I'm saying, I don't know, if double insurance and.
Basically,
The people mentioned, this is part of
when it created everything, they went ahead, they filed with the county supplemental amendments to the charter, which outlaid the specific responsibilities that the HOA, and when I say the HOA, it actually means your sections are responsible for essentially pooling your money to go ahead and take care of your capital assets for Sandpiper, Sagewood, and Villas.
But again,
Man, I'd like to answer your question.
Yeah, that can't even be done.
Coming directly from the charter. It says that the HOA is responsible for, and this is section 2A1 in exhibit B of your charter. HOA is responsible for replacement of the roofs, including shingles and roof decking of dwellings and garages, including the roofs of any porches built as part of the original construction of the dwelling or replacements thereof at the end of their useful life, as the board may determine.
again, yes, and as the board may determine. What, do you guys have a schedule on? Is because.
Your reserve study does lay out.
It does continue.
The useful life of a shingle roof can be 18 to 20 years, it's typical. The insurance useful life is 10 years. So, and again, we have to insure them based on how the homes are classified with the county. So that's, and I know I'm getting stuck on this, but I used to be in an insurance agency on there, I know a little bit about that. And I read that, and when I bought it, I'm like, well, I have to insure the roof anyways, so I'm good for them, but I don't know exactly what it means. Based on the schedule the board determines, or.
So that's according to the reserve study. The reserve,
Okay, so the reserve.
the reserve study determines the life of.
And I know you're doing the reserve study.
Yeah, reserve, what did it say?
So right now, based upon, because I just pulled up yours. They have an 18-year, like, the engineers that did the reserve study said 18 years for your roofing. 8 years for your paint. Now, like I said, they broke it out into when your house was built, group 1, 2, and 3. So first group for painting will be in 2 years. At the amount.
So you're saying that, so you can't even insure your roof if it's older than 10 years old?
2024. Yes, group one will be in 2024. Will be.
But that's only 8 years for, are you talking roofs? Or not?
I'm talking about.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, if you're on the group one's roof is in 12 years.
That's what you say. 2034. So our reserve now are slowly building up to those first roof replacements in 2000. I mean, of course.
Well, a portion of it is building up for the the first roof, because, according to this, in 2035, assuming everybody's still here, and there's any changes, you would be getting brand new paint and brand new roofs that year.
Now, here's another question. We have my own background. Don't anyone change insurance carrier after your roof is 10 years old, because an insurance carrier in the state of Florida is not going to sell a shingle roof that's older than 10 years old on a change of policy. I'll start at Bible today right now. If the builder's insurance line only have a 10-year life expectancy. So my home was built and I moved in 2017. I sell after 2027, but my shingle roof hasn't been replaced. The new owner is not going to be able to get insurance on it without a roof replacement. And again, we insure them, we insure the roofs in, so either I myself as a homeowner or the new owner will have to replace their roof. And it's not.
It sounds,
Don't control this.
no, that sounds accurate. I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
You're right, but I'm one short thing, that I don't know if this helps much, but painting, roofing, you know, the reserve study is a guideline of which to plan your finances, but, you know, if the house needs painting now, we paint it now. It doesn't need to wait till it cycles.
And this is more existential, the issues I'm bringing up, but. Yes, I am biding my time, I am hoping to be out of here. At 2025, well, before my husband turns 10 years old, because that is the net number I want. I want to sell a shingle roof home before it reaches 10 years old, especially with this, because the new homeowner is not going to be able to get home insurance. And I know it's not necessarily your guys' issue, but the board has to take that into account. And yes, 18 to 20 years is a standard life of a shingle roof, but not in Florida and not for insurable purposes.
So the adverse effect is, say, okay, we go to fix that in reserve study. We could ear tag it, and we could actually start fixing the funding immediately. We could either fix it via special assessment,
I know it's.
or we could fix it going into 2024. At the end of the day, it just means this is going to cost
It's-
more money.
And it's something again, and the whole roof maintenance in our charter, since the day I bought it, confused me. So I'm insuring the roof in, I'm insuring the outside, it has to be insured as an HL3. I know the reserve study, and it is 18 years is so typical and average.
In short,
Insurable purpose.
I don't think anyone here has a direct answer to that problem, but we need you here during budget season, because that is something that we could then actually.
And
Put
the
into effect.
fellows bought, in 2016, it's coming, it doesn't seem like it's
That too, I
that
think,
close, but 2017 is really just around.
when we were doing the reserve studies, we had similar setup like this. Unfortunately, it was just us. Hopefully now we have community involvement, but that would have been great, because we do have the opportunity to go into our study and adjust the timelines and everything. And maybe that's something we do.
So, and it's probably specific to the parabills because we have to insure them as homes as
Right.
HO3s versus the
Get
same.
Piper Crest and Way, because they're.
Exactly, and
They-
they would, yeah, so it's some change to probably very specific about, we pay more than homeowners insurance. But these ones that were built in 2016, if they try to sell them, the new owners is gonna have help.
That's fair.
I think you had a question. Did you have a question?
Can I ask a question about landscaping? How long do we have these landscapers?
Oh, I forgot, I wanted to address it earlier, I got sidetracked. Yeah, landscaping sucks, guys, we all,
Yeah.
I saw the video,
It's bad.
And you started speaking here.
our landscaping, there's two things, and I'm not pushing anything off, there's two things in consideration. One thing is, I don't know if it was the hard freeze or what the hell happened, but even my lawn, I'm in single family, and there are huge chunks in my lawn, huge chunks, that are just crap, all right? And I'm watering properly, I'm doing everything right, of course, in line, a smart system, I got the weed killer guy out, I still have issues. So it's not so bad a little bit for everyone. That being said, landscaping's horrible, we're on a month to month with them. If anyone that was with us at our last month's board meeting, said point blank, Patty, get us 3 landscapers, we need an interview them. This Thursday, I'm planning a date for the interview with the board at the meeting. What date are we putting it on? And then we're gonna have 2 hours long. One company gets a half an hour and a 15-minute break.
Can I ask how you bid them out? I worked in.
What would you say?
So, I mean, you actually put a bid out there with line items and.
Yes.
And everything in detailed and
Yeah.
everything.
We have it all detailed out, and then we actually walk Patty, or sometimes Kathy or Sean, or myself, will walk the property with them. And then we meet them here to look over their proposals. And a lot of times there's even options in the proposals, like, do they do backyards? No, they're not if it's fenced, but they could. How are we doing the swales? Are we doing push main? So, but yes, Sunrise has failed us. We thought they were gonna be great. They weren't. That being said, I don't think any company's great. I have a feeling even if we all did our best due diligence to pick some.
One no bid or you.
I'm sorry?
You just go on no bid or you.
Oh, no, even when we picked Sunrise this last year, they weren't the lowest bidder. So typically, no, we go by who we think is gonna fit. This year, there are some criterias that make it harder, I think, in my opinion, for landscaping companies to commit. But those that don't commit will just bow out right away. They have to commit to meeting once a week in person with the foreman in charge and walk the property with Patty and go over every open ticket in our system. They need to conform to using our portfolio maintenance system, not their own, not some other site you're gonna go to, not something that they're in control of, something we're in control of. That's why I was saying, when we put in a maintenance request, we actually go through it one by one every Wednesday. And then we notate it, what was fixed, what wasn't fixed.
So if we pay the landscaper and part of the budget line item is mulch and they don't put it in for 18 months or, 22 months. What is,
It's actually-
as an HOA, what is our leverage to get them to?
So
commit to-
mulch is probably a kind of a specific thing, right? So mulch is not part of their contract. Mulch is something we pay separate for, which is why it's a separate line item for you. It's an actual expense throughout the year. So if they're not putting down mulch, it's because we didn't tell them to. If we didn't tell them to, it's probably because we don't have the money, which is another bigger problem, right? And that's what was happening for those 18 months and years
Yeah,
probably.
I mean, not 18 months, they got it.
It's out of control.
So, and then along those same lines, what about the pest control and the fertilization?
All the same and all up for grabs. Right now, we put Sunrise and irrigation and fertilization all under one umbrella. I think that's gonna be great. It's one company to point to in this problem. But what we're noticing, the company is probably creating its own problems and then charging us to fix their problems. So again, it's
Well, for sprinklers.
sprinklers, for prime example.
But, so
So we want to separate the 3 in our next. We're
we
gonna
want a separate company for fertilization and pest control,
Yep.
a separate company for irrigation, sprinkler heads,
Yep.
a separate company for, is that gonna increase, or do we know?
shouldn't. I mean, we'll know when we have numbers.
I mean, it's, again.
Part of that is why we vote on contingency.
That's, yes,
It was,
I do, every 6 weeks or so, little handheld sprinkler, fertilization, and pest control around my house, from all my bushes. But I think part of the reason why lawns are failing is because we're not getting that monthly fertilization and pest control. Back to the smart system. And you said, I'm watering, I'm not watering, right? Yeah, isn't there a way to say there's chimp bugs here, that's why it's failing, chimp bug. There's, you're not getting the fertilization.
I agree with you. We're not getting that.
I'm just, isn't that?
No, it's
That,
It's not like built into the system. I don't have a way to move soil. And
I'm sure, this, I know this is way longer than we.
they're not that simple. They're pretty.
In general, Perryville owners aren't happy with the takeover of their irrigation systems. I think I can say that for everybody. The cost when the units are good and we don't see a need, why we can't put that on the individual homeowners who aren't keeping up with their lawns?
We don't, part of the problem is we don't know who that is. Like, I could walk up to a homeowner and see dead grass, but now I have to prove that they're not watering, or they have to prove that they are. There's no record. There's no record.
I guess another thing would be the follow-up for the lawn landscape maintenance inside those pergola homeowners who have chosen to put up fences. I know I read that from the beginning, if it's inside the fence, not maintain it. So I took that as a number that if I put up a fence, I would probably get a summer home. Really think, because our lawns are the size of less than this, you know, so. I'm afraid of everyone and then.
We were gonna use that if we had like 30 people.
I don't know when they apply for the parking misses for approval on their fences, if that's brought up
Mhm.
as an issue. I don't know how that, I never put into the art committee for a fence, but if that's not brought up, maybe there can be, and maybe art committee is different. And then what's another issue? Just if there's ever a really large 100% increase in rates. And I know, just like homeowners, you can't pay for these things if the money's not there. We can't pay for things if the money's not there. I did call Verizon and I switched from Verizon from my cell phones to Spectrum. That saved me $200 a month for 12 months. I mean, I made some cutbacks so that I could do this. I'm a single woman with just my income. I'm making it happen. And I know it's probably more on our, what we're paying now. But I've lived in the trails, I lived in the garden district, I've lived in Kinglet Ridge where all of their water is part of their fees.
If I may real quick, just
an increase of that amount,
listen, we're not, and this goes to everyone. If you truly understand how we got here. If you do, you'll know that this will never happen. Because you're never going to be facing another increase like this. We're trying to explain why over the past several months.
It's a 360 something to $500 a month for the next year.
I'm telling you, it's just not possible if you understand why we got here. For the people that don't understand why we got here, the biggest fear is that what's going to stop the next board from doing it 1,000%. They won't have to.
How can you commit that? Because.
Hold on, I'm telling you how I'm telling you. If you understand the math and the budget, then you know that. The only reason it could increase 1,000%.
Even I'm not buying right now.
You don't have to buy it, it's not something.
No, listen, I'm not buying the justification what we're giving in school education because there are multiple answers to it. And then you also said that if we don't use it any money, then we may be taxed and everything, right?
Right.
So then just go to make your budget popular by not going to this one. We change it and then let the education not happen this year, then happen next year. Because we discussed what is not needed.
Yeah, but you're still talking, hold on, you mixed two things. You're talking about a specific item. I'm talking about 100%.
I can almost ask the question.
Okay, I'm done with irrigation. The project's pretty much moving forward. We've explained it 500 times from Sunday. I don't know how to do it.
There's no question to answer. In fact, if you have not.
What I'm trying to explain it is, you're not gonna get another 100% increase, because the 100% increase that you got is not from an irrigation project. It's from an overspending and an oversight of the monies and where it was going in this plan.
$60,000.
But you've done that.
You guys were really right now.
Well, part of it is you guys did enter 2022 already carrying a balance.
So here's my,
See, that's what I'm saying. If we're done with that, there's no point even discussing anymore because that's.
Irrigation, no, there's really not, unless there's something you don't understand about it. Like I said, it was an informative meeting, right?
So, I get it, because you understand, we had a discussion, we came up with it, we told you, and you're done, so I think we're done with the litigation, we should not bring up anything. Right, you're done, because that's what we're saying, because that's what we should be having.
Again,
here.
if you have a confusion about it, or you
I
need
did-
something
I
explained.
didn't.
But if you have anything further that's confusing, instead of continuing asking, why do we still do it, why do we still do it, why do we still do it? We're doing it because we followed through to go through with it, and it's,
Again, I said, I have,
but if you have a question about a function, why we chose to do it, where we're getting the money to do it. Bring that forward now.
No, where the money is coming, we know that we are paying very fast as an individual, so we know about those things. The question is, again, I don't want to read that question again, because I already asked my question, I know I've got an answer, so I'm done with that.
Well, it's just like we're in the neighborhood of the community, okay? We had to not get stuff because the money that we paid in went to your community. So there's a history.
That's the part, because they are not accountable to that.
That's correct.
There's other facts.
That's a fact.
Being the different shops. In fact, and one time, that I asked the question, hey, how come, why? What do you do? Why do you do? There was nobody, maybe somebody listened to it later on, there were so many opportunities. The aggravation and, the increase in everything that's happening, before they actually go to it, there was plenty of opportunity.
Some opportunity, because I heard in the last 4 meetings, someone had said that if the people are not factoring, there is scope where we can correct it and we can always go back and change it. That's when we come, there are not.
Right, but I said that very specifically to very specific items.
Yeah.
It was never an irrigation project. It was
I-
mulch, if you choose not to mulch this year, to soften the blow for 1 year. And that's the same thing we gave to Sagewood as an option. If you need to soften the cushion between this year and next year, you could choose not to power wash, you could choose not to
No,
mulch.
that's where you
We can
see,
read.
that's where you see them. And it's not something, I'm already, in fact, you will see I've paid it on the day one, in fact, whether that's. My point is, I actually thought that the lady who was talking about there, that she couldn't. I'm saying, for those kind of people, you would have thought seriously, how you have made it better. That's what I'm saying, you should have done that, there was a chance for that, there was a hope definitely.
I understand your feeling, and the general feeling is the board let you all down because they're putting through a project you don't want in a time where you didn't need the increase of money. I get it, you've been hurt.
That's what I mean, there was definitely scope, there was scope, we would have thought about it, and I heard that in the past, you said that. Definitely you can think about doing something in the middle of the year, which can be done, not think about can be done, there are ways. If something, there are, in fact, she was asking the same thing.
Sure.
How we can do it, some just be those ones, how you could do it, think about it, and make it popular.
And I've tried that, and I've tried that with,
I'm that happening, Tom.
Ann, what's Ann's name? I'm sorry, it's not Ann. You said her name earlier. Ann, it's not.
Oh, and actually.
Annika. I told Annika exactly that, in that meeting. You all can make a change, but to make a change now, it's a forceful change. It doesn't come with ease.
I mean, I think we're. all-
You're thinking it comes with ease, it doesn't.
The increase in our.
It's like Kyle, he's gonna go get an attorney.
Yeah,
That's not with ease.
yeah, I don't think it's good, but that's in the spot.
The board, in retrospect, maybe we could have done it differently, but I'll also say in retrospect, we had the 8 of us, 7 board members, we had Jason, we had only maybe Jennifer. We had no one else, so as a collective group, then, when the change could have been done, there was no one else, and unfortunately, now we're getting the attention, which is fantastic, but,
I mean, that was legal,
Yeah.
that was unethical.
well, it's not unethical, you just may not agree with it.
It's okay, it's already done, you said, done, that's unethical.
Okay, I'm-
Again, actually, people are not having some on the ground, people are not. I feel that as a board, to be popular, they should be definitely.
I'm not trying to be popular.
Yeah. Definitely, let's give the word popular, maybe I'm using the wrong word. Make it's something which people should be happy and making something which people think about that you have done something good, because that's what the whole of.
I do 100%, and you all will be happy with this, I'll promise. That's the way I see it. I see a different ending.
You just said that you have a spot, my principal in your head, but still you have to create.
I have other issues with me.
That's what I mean, it's not that you should follow a show, you just have to get smart stuff. And I
I'm
feel.
thrilled with it. I had some thrilled with it.
If you post, that's what I feel.
I'm even hurt.
Boards look at the issue with others for further investigation or inquiry about how the research that is going to be done, the usable life of a roof versus the insurable life. We do have to insure them. Again, our homes are categorized by the county as homes, not townhomes, not condos. We have to insure the roofs I don't know what type of insurance or contingency fee we're paying for maintenance, because maintenance isn't covered. I don't, so if we can, then I would like this addressed in the future.
Yeah, that's like, even I have a question, that as a India, why we should go with HOD insurance? Because roof is already covered by HOA thing, right? Why we should be doing, I need to understand that, maybe it is.
Again,
Would be connected to this question.
Yeah, I'm not sure anyone's gonna be there to understand the answer.
Like,
Yeah, that's not an
like,
HOA.
how you working with your attorney or the school, or the insurance, so reserve, they can answer that.
Our insurance provider.
The insurance provider can tell you that, that's
How
not.
is how is your master income being written based on that account? So now, our master income is covering the roof, then why is it coming to us?
But here's the thing, I can get you a copy of the policy. I'm saying, when you come to a board meeting, that's great, but we're your neighbors, we're not gonna have the answer for you.
The ma-
our master,
master's
insurance
not
policy
covering
should not cover our.
It's covered this roof.
The county is
Yeah, I know, there's some sort of overlap.
So the master HOA policy for the pair village would not cover our roofs based on the way the county classifies.
It doesn't.
Hey,
It doesn't, it covers this roof, and those roofs out there, but not your roof.
Now,
Our roofs are covered, so that's what I don't understand.
So maintenance, let me just say this, I've been kind of quiet listening to all this, but in this particular case, you're conflating two things. Insurance is not to replace your roof. Insurance is gonna replace your roof when it burns down, or when the hurricane blows it away. And if you have accumulated enough money to pay for half of the cost for replacements, then the insurance company's only gonna pay for half. And you're gonna still have to use your reserves against that, and you're gonna continue on. So the issue about what we are,
Understand what you just said.
what we're saying right now is that if you're in year 10 out of 18 and your house
So
burned
you're
down,
Maintenance.
I'm talking about both of them. If in the 10th year of an 18-year period that you've accumulated costs to replace your roof, something goes bad that's not insurable, not a hurricane, not fire, but something else happens. We have had that happen in a couple of places. Then the reserves have to pay for that. What you're accumulating is paying for that.
The HOA reserve.
Yeah, the reserves are doing. And the insurance company doesn't pay a dime.
What? And I don't know, like 5808 circa Bishop, well, this, what has the reserve covered for replacements that you said it come up? Just for.
here, I don't.
With respect to the reserve, nothing. Now, contingency wise, last year, you guys did spend roughly $6,400 on 4 homes for repairs following the hurricane.
That's
Okay, yeah, and I know one of my neighbors.
That was not covered by insurance.
So, following the hurricane, so why was that covered under the HOA?
That's what-
Homeowner? Do you know?
It's not a home, what didn't affect this roof, it affected your roof, or that person's roof, and because it comes under their insurance.
But it wasn't.
Just said that. This would be for something related
The reserve did in the
to
contingency.
contingency. So why would that pay for the homeowner cost? Just for my own edification?
If I had to guess, it had to deal with,
The
the insurance didn't pay for a portion of it and comes back to, the amendment that's filed with the county requiring the HOA to cover repairs for.
Can you answer that better?
And again, that's for my own edification, is.
It used to be the HOA, Heather would have the HOA pay for it, and then Heather would deal with the insurance company on looking for the reimbursement. I'm not saying that's the right or wrong way to do it. That's a Patty question.
You're forgetting that on the roofs, that there is a deductible that's fairly substantial, depending upon your pricing of your roof. So some people may have a 5,000 wrong.
It's a hazard deductible, so if it's an all perils, you usually have $1,000 deductible or $2,000. Those are standard. If it's hurricane, it can be anywhere from 2% to 25% of the insured value of your home.
Mhm.
So if it was hurricane or storm.
And that's where the reserves come in.
Percentage of the insured value of.
And that shortfall you have to pay for, and that's what we're reserving for. It's that shortfall. If you have to, if you end up paying,
If hurricane comes through and blows off all 6 of our roofs.
just take one roof. Just take one roof, it blows away your roof.
Well, I was gonna say.
Yeah, it goes okay.
My roof and my roof alone, and my hurricane deductible is 2% of the insured value of my home. I have my insured value set, I think at 270 or 274.
Mhm.
It's not the market, whatever your market value is, not your insured value of your home. 2% of that is gonna be about $15,000.
That's
So,
right.
if that's a shortfall, I can come to the HOA and the HOA.
Exactly, that's what you're reserving for. That's what you're reserving for your roof, your share of that reserve.
It's like-
I don't know if that's true. The bylaw.
Can you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Can you please email that question to Patty, because when you say the HOA, it's her job to figure out the answer to that question.
He's putting that on a recorded video that the HOA is gonna pay our hurricane deductible.
Okay, there's no motion.
I don't think that's the case.
Well, I don't work with insurance company, I don't know your policy, I'm an accountant, okay? So when your roof goes off and you're insured and there's some money to be paid to put the roof back whole, you've been reserving for replacing the roof at a certain point in time, okay? So the money that's in that fund, and I'm not an expert on this, I'm a CPA, but I'm not an expert on home insurance. But you've been accumulating money to fix your roof, whether it's in 18 years or it's 10 years or whenever it happens and it's a non-insured coverage.
I
Then-
personally don't have a reserve in my bank account for the cost of my.
The HOA is accumulating that because our interest in doing that for you is because your next door neighbor, if you were doing it individually, he may not be able to put his roof back and you're the guy that's sitting on the other side.
Again, you're insinuating that the HOA will pay the deductible from every.
No, you're paying it through the HOA. We're not paying you deductible.
Okay,
You have a right to what you're accumulating in that
and
account.
I forget what question specifically you want.
Pretty much that, you just email management at FHRW.org, what happens in.
It's confusing to me with.
That's
We're insured for versus what. First company. 2014, the models.
I mean, I knew this was you guys, but like, how did it go that we only had 2 accounts, 2 separate?
Well, that's easy.
You know, that's.
You had
My mind.
You had, let's call it God. Newland Communities that says I'm building this. Okay, for all intents and purposes, you read the charter, the developer is God. The developer, under developer control, can do whatever the developer wants, however the developer wants, whatever, right? So the developer says, you need 2 accounts. We have a reserve account, which we'll put next to nothing in, and we'll have an operating account, which will fund however this is.
But when the HOA came in, I would have thought someone would have had common sense.
This is that, this past 2 years, that's been that every the moment.
The prior management company combined the previous accounts that were separated. Originally, under Rosetta, you guys each had an operation and a reserve. So they combined everything.
What was the accountant doing?
Which account?
One of the units,
Newland's accountant. And I mean, part of what's going on here is this whole, the whole program that we're looking at as far as reserves are concerned was done for the builders. It was done so they could sell homes. So they estimate, because I was involved with it over, I was involved with it over Oasis. And when we took it over, we looked at what their reserves were, and their reserves were $70,000 for the entire community, $70,000. So we had to make that choice 3.5 years ago. We made the big jump at that point. And everybody was furious. Why can you do this? It happens everywhere. You know, these new communities being built down here, in 5 years, when they're all built out, they're gonna have awakening, and they're gonna do it. You know, and what's happening here is because we've got this type of buildings, it's all been accumulating over time at different periods of time. And as Newland has walked out and the builders have walked out and left it, then the homeowners association here was run like a traditional homeowners association, not with the view toward the fact that many of these subgroups have unique problems that have to be dealt with. And so, you know, it was sort of a thing that kind of snuck up on people. But now, one of the things that this board is doing by trying to straighten out these reserves and getting them in better shape, you can sell your house better, because the realtors and their attorneys are all asking the question, are you adequately funded? Because they don't want to pay for this stuff, and they want to know that you're adequately funded when they buy your house. So if you don't have that, you have to take a real bite to the value of your home.
How do I submit it for our groups to be, you know, just how they're covered to get it on the board agenda or?
So it's not gonna make it for this Thursday.
Exactly.
We'll make it for next month. Just email management@fhrw.org. Patty gets it,
And
Jennifer
again,
gets
it's
it.
more edification and clarification.
Yeah, I'm all for it. Yeah. They had a little bit like how we get here. Always gotta look back in time a little bit. The developer didn't just disappear. It was a very slow release. So even though you were really getting off of developer control, there was a lot of board cycle there where you still, a developer would have 3 seats, or a developer would have 4 seats. So it didn't happen overnight. And then it finally did happen overnight, where a developer lost his last seat, left completely, and now you had this fresh board of people who, you had a much smaller community, a fraction of the homes were still being built, right? And a new board with 0 resident input, and because residents didn't know, everything was brand new to everyone, and the board didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know what they inherited. They inherited a budget. They said, here, this is your budget, sign here. They did, literally 2 days after. And they moved forward with that, assuming that everything is kosher, working out well. And that just wasn't the case. And so it took another board cycle until we got more community involvement. And you get a new board that actually looked into it, got a treasurer, got a finance committee. It actually goes, hold a minute.
That's when we switched from Zeta to Associate, and then.
Somewhere in,
Yes, and then when we.
because when I came on as a director, that very first meeting I had, I wasn't in any control. I was just a brand new director, never did this before. That very first meeting, we asked associate management to leave. Jeff Leon asked him to leave, and then read his notice that said we can resign, and we're now hiring an associate. We had no part in it. We were all new. It was just, 3 people that were still withstanding from that board. So we were learning from that. We didn't know. We didn't know till we knew.
You don't know what you don't know.
No.
And we're all seeing from a very large increase in our monthly dues. We're going from like 1,500 years to nearly 5,000. For our combined master and FHRW dues. It's done. Some people can afford it, and
And I wish it was done that way when the neighborhood was first developed. I wish developers did it properly. My wife and I had an inkling of it when we bought our house, because we lived in the past HOA and kind of suffered the exact same thing. So we looked at 576 a month or whatever, 526, we're like, is it?
I mean, I'm putting out little things, but the lady who was back here, she really loved her. And she's.
It's frustrating because, I've been to the nature when it all of a sudden for me that everybody's upset. But, I feel like, hey, I was there was plenty of time. There was.
Stacy, who was who's
You
really.
didn't have to do some research to figure out.
Stacy was, she had said she was at a few of the meetings. She said she sat in on, but.
I was at every meeting.
Some people are really hurting, and I know it's. I'm gonna eat it, I'm not gonna get a lot of stuff from
I wanted to mention one other thing real quick, because Kyle, you brought it up, and I want to make sure I show you real quick, is the document status. A lot of times you may be looking for something and it's not there, you're not finding what you're looking for. It's
Yeah.
because still pruning it, probably going to be pruning it for the next 3 years, right? We have such a huge data dump in private that, for instance, Mark told me where's the audit? People are looking for, I'm like, well, it's not public. It's not in the public, it's in the private. So I just created an audit folder now and dumped all the audits in there. We have them, but I'm a one-man team kind of pruning this data that we got from Associates Data Dump, so it takes time. I try to get all the pertinent stuff there and show you where it is. But if anyone who are ever looking for something, you can't find it, just email me. Chances are, it's just not in the place where where it needs to be or should be. Because our dump is not nice. I can't just go in there and see what everything is.
Associated did not have an SSRC filing code.
And their files themselves.
So
They're not even named.
I did find paired bills, but it didn't have everything, and it didn't have it had addendums, but it didn't have the basic
Sure.
chart for the paired bills.
So let me,
Service area.
and it's confusing for myself as well. I usually email.
But somebody sent that out, I think it was Mark. Did you send us the chart? I mean, but it wasn't in, when I went to dump all the data, and it was probably December, or maybe January, it wasn't all there.
Okay, but the addendums themselves are addendums to the HOA charter.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so it won't specifically
You should
say
check theirs.
paired villas, it's an addition to.
I can't read
It should have been.
Page 2A.
Definitely just the stuff that I got.
If it didn't
Two
get there, it should be in there.
So it's not.
So they pulled just part, it's a
Thank you very much.
thing that's.
By the way, I'm not mad. Just, I try to do this because I care, it doesn't always come up.
That's fine.
Did you check your settlement documents?
Yeah, yeah, and I
Do
do
one
have
in your
something.
settlement.
No, I actually saw this too, where I didn't, my documents didn't necessarily have, but it has mentioned to stating that you have and agree to. You've read all these, have access to these, have asked for them and agreed to them, whether they're existing in the document.
Ours were in a CD.
Here's one in a CD, see, definitely not.
Oh, yeah, mine wasn't either, yeah, no, mine.
Which I agree is probably all on its own, CDs don't agree.
Who was it that sold the last the pair of bills? Who was the builder? I don't even remember. That irritated me quite right.
I think
it was Lennar.
Well, I know Ryan.
Somebody took over it, and anyway, I almost didn't close. I told them I wasn't gonna close. That's not my dream home. That's my.
Thank you.
I travel, I mean, I don't. My wife wanted me to do save